Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we are discussing about the latest Vietnamese Dong update for 2026. Vietnam's fast-growing economy, the latest exchange rate movements, international investment trends, trade expansion, manufacturing growth, and what all of these developments could mean for the future of the Vietnamese Dong in the global financial market. Over the last few years, Vietnam has become one of the most closely watched economies in Asia. And in 2026, global investors, currency watchers, exporters, and international businesses are paying even more attention to the direction of the Vietnamese economy and the strength of the Vietnamese Dong. From rising exports to strong foreign investment and increasing manufacturing activity, Vietnam continues to position itself as one of the most important economic success stories in Southeast Asia. The Vietnamese economy entered 2026 with strong momentum after several years of steady industrial expansion and export growth. Major international companies continue moving parts of their production operations to Vietnam, helping the country strengthen its position as a global manufacturing hub. This shift has increased demand for Vietnamese labor, boosted industrial output, and expanded the country's role in global supply chains. As global corporations diversify production away from relying on one single country, Vietnam has become one of the biggest beneficiaries of that strategy. Electronics, textiles, automotive components, semiconductors, and technology manufacturing are all expanding rapidly across major Vietnamese industrial regions. One of the biggest topics investors are discussing right now is the stability of the Vietnamese Dong against major world currencies, including the US dollar, Chinese yuan, Japanese yen, and euro. Currency analysts say Vietnam's central bank has continued using careful monetary management to maintain stability while supporting exports and economic growth. Stability has become extremely important because international investors want predictable market conditions before committing billions of dollars into factories, infrastructure projects, and technology partnerships. Vietnam's ability to balance inflation, exports, and currency stability has helped strengthen international confidence in the country's financial system. Many financial experts believe Vietnam's long-term economic strategy is focused on controlled growth rather than sudden currency appreciation. That means authorities are likely to continue supporting export competitiveness while also ensuring inflation remains under control. Vietnam's export sector remains one of the strongest pillars of the economy. The country exports electronics, footwear, garments, furniture, machinery, and agricultural products to major international markets, including the United States, Europe, China, Japan, and South Korea. As export revenue rises, Vietnam continues building stronger foreign exchange reserves, which supports broader financial stability. Another major development in 2026 is the continued growth of foreign direct investment entering Vietnam. Investors from Asia, Europe, and North America are increasingly choosing Vietnam because of its young workforce, competitive manufacturing costs, strategic geographic location, and improving infrastructure. New industrial parks, transportation networks, ports, and logistics facilities are being developed across the country to support long-term economic expansion. International companies see Vietnam not only as a manufacturing destination, but also as a rapidly growing consumer market with rising middle-class demand. At the same time, analysts are closely watching how global economic conditions affect Vietnam's trade performance. Slower global demand in some sectors has created pressure on exports, but Vietnam has continued showing resilience due to diversified manufacturing and strong regional trade relationships. Vietnam's participation in multiple international trade agreements has also strengthened its economic position. These agreements provide Vietnamese businesses greater access to global markets and help attract additional international investment into the country. Currency traders are especially focused on the relationship between the Vietnamese Dong and the US dollar. As As the US Federal Reserve continues adjusting interest rate policy, emerging market currencies, including the dong, often experience pressure from global capital movements. However, Vietnam's strong export earnings and consistent investment inflows have helped reduce excessive volatility compared to many other developing economies. Financial institutions say Vietnam's economic fundamentals remain relatively strong compared to several regional peers. Inflation management has also become one of the key priorities for Vietnamese policymakers in 2026. Rising global energy prices and supply chain costs have affected economies around the world, but Vietnam has attempted to maintain price stability through coordinated fiscal and monetary measures. Stable inflation is important because it protects purchasing power, encourages consumer spending, and supports investor confidence. If inflation rises too quickly, it could weaken the currency and create financial instability. So far, Vietnam's central bank has remained cautious while balancing economic growth objectives. Tourism is another important sector, contributing to economic recovery and currency stability. International tourism in Vietnam has rebounded strongly, bringing additional foreign currency into the country. Major cities and tourist destinations are seeing increased international arrivals from Asia, Europe, and North America. Hotels, airlines, restaurants, and entertainment sectors are all benefiting from the return of global travelers. Tourism revenue helps strengthen the overall balance of payments and supports service sector employment across the country. Vietnam's banking sector is also undergoing modernization as digital finance and electronic payment systems continue expanding rapidly. More consumers are using mobile banking, online payment platforms, and digital financial services. Financial technology growth is helping increase economic efficiency while attracting investment into Vietnam's growing technology sector. International financial institutions believe Vietnam's digital economy could become one of the fastest growing in Southeast Asia over the next decade. Meanwhile, the Vietnamese stock market continues attracting attention from both domestic and foreign investors. Market analysts say investor sentiment has remained cautiously optimistic despite global uncertainties. Companies connected to manufacturing, infrastructure, logistics, technology, and exports have seen growing investor interest. International investment funds continue monitoring Vietnam as a potential long-term growth market due to its favorable demographics and economic trajectory. Energy development is another major story shaping Vietnam's economic future. The government is investing heavily in renewable energy projects, including solar, wind, and hydroelectric power. Vietnam's industrial expansion requires large-scale energy infrastructure, and authorities are working to ensure energy supply keeps pace with rising demand. International energy companies are also partnering with Vietnam on renewable energy initiatives, creating additional investment opportunities and helping diversify the economy. One of the reasons the Vietnamese Dong continues receiving global attention is because Vietnam's economic growth has consistently outperformed many expectations over the last decade. While some economies struggled with instability, Vietnam maintained relatively strong growth through manufacturing expansion, export diversification, and international investment partnerships. This consistency has strengthened Vietnam's reputation among global investors and multinational corporations. At the same time, economists warn that challenges still remain. Vietnam must continue improving infrastructure, workforce training, productivity, and financial regulation to maintain long-term competitiveness. Rising labor costs could also affect certain industries in the future if productivity growth does not keep pace. Global economic slowdowns, geopolitical tensions, and trade disruptions could create additional risks for export-driven economies like Vietnam. That is why policymakers continue emphasizing economic diversification and strategic planning. Another important factor influencing the Vietnamese Dong is regional competition. Countries across Southeast Asia are all competing to attract foreign manufacturing investment. Vietnam currently has strong momentum, but maintaining that advantage requires continuous reforms and infrastructure development. Investors compare Vietnam with countries like Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia, and the Philippines when making long-term decisions about factory expansion and supply chain investments. In 2026, semiconductor production and technology manufacturing have become especially important for Vietnam's economic ambitions. Global technology firms are increasing investment in advanced manufacturing operations across the country. This shift could significantly increase export value and support higher skilled employment opportunities for Vietnamese workers. Analysts believe technology manufacturing may become one of the biggest long-term drivers of Vietnam's future economic growth. Agriculture also continues playing a critical role in Vietnam's economy. Despite rapid industrialization, Vietnam remains one of the world's leading exporters of rice, coffee, seafood, and agricultural products. Agricultural exports generate important foreign exchange revenue while supporting millions of rural jobs. However, climate challenges and changing weather patterns continue creating risks for agricultural production in some regions. The government's infrastructure development strategy remains another major focus in 2026. New highways, airports, ports, rail systems, and industrial zones are being developed to improve logistics efficiency and support future economic growth. Better infrastructure reduces transportation costs, strengthens supply chains, and increases Vietnam's attractiveness to international investors. Infrastructure modernization is considered essential for sustaining long-term economic competitiveness. Many viewers are asking whether the Vietnamese Dong could see significant appreciation in the future. Financial experts say any major currency changes would likely depend on long-term economic conditions, trade performance, inflation levels, foreign reserves, and global market stability. Most analysts believe Vietnam will continue preferring gradual and controlled financial management rather than dramatic currency shifts. Stability is viewed as more beneficial for long-term economic planning and export competitiveness. International credit rating agencies have also been monitoring Vietnam's economic performance closely. Positive economic growth, rising exports, and stable investment flows have helped support Vietnam's international financial reputation. Stronger credit ratings can reduce borrowing costs and encourage additional foreign investment into infrastructure and development projects. Meanwhile, consumer spending inside Vietnam continues increasing as incomes rise and urbanization expands. Shopping centers, technology products, transportation services, and housing demand are all growing in major cities. A stronger middle class creates new economic opportunities and helps diversify growth beyond exports alone. Domestic consumption is becoming an increasingly important pillar of Vietnam's economic strategy. The relationship between Vietnam and major global powers also plays an important role in shaping economic expectations. Trade partnerships with the United States, China, Japan, South Korea, and European countries continue expanding. Vietnam's strategic position in regional trade networks gives it an important advantage as companies seek diversified supply chains and stable manufacturing environments. Another trend gaining attention in 2026 is Vietnam's push toward innovation and education development. Authorities are investing more resources into technical training, engineering programs, and digital skills education. Building a highly skilled workforce is considered critical for moving Vietnam beyond low-cost manufacturing toward higher value industries and advanced technologies. Financial analysts also note that Vietnam's young population provides long-term economic advantages. A large working-age population supports productivity, consumption growth, and labor market expansion. Demographic strength is one reason many investors remain optimistic about Vietnam's future growth potential over the next decade. The Vietnamese real estate sector has also experienced strong development in recent years. Urban expansion, industrial growth, and rising incomes have increased demand for housing, office space, and industrial property. However, regulators continue monitoring the sector carefully to prevent excessive speculation and financial risks. Maintaining balanced real estate growth is considered important for overall economic stability. Global supply chain restructuring remains one of the biggest themes benefiting Vietnam in 2026. Many multinational corporations continue reducing overdependence on single-country manufacturing operations and expanding into Vietnam as part of broader diversification strategies. This trend has accelerated investment in factories, logistics centers, and industrial infrastructure throughout the country. Shipping and port activity have also increased significantly due to rising export demand. Vietnam's ports are becoming increasingly important in regional trade networks connecting Asia, Europe, and North America. Improved logistics efficiency strengthens export competitiveness and supports industrial growth. At the same time, environmental sustainability is becoming a bigger priority for Vietnam's long-term development plans. Authorities are facing pressure to balance rapid industrial expansion with environmental protection and clean energy investment. International investors increasingly consider sustainability standards when choosing investment destinations, making environmental policy an important part of Vietnam's future economic strategy. Central bank policy remains one of the most closely watched issues for currency markets. Investors continue monitoring interest rates, foreign reserve management, inflation data, and monetary policy signals. Vietnam's policymakers appear focused on maintaining financial stability while supporting growth and export competitiveness. Sudden or unpredictable policy shifts could create market uncertainty, so authorities have generally preferred gradual adjustments. Vietnam's integration into the global economy continues expanding through trade agreements and regional partnerships. These agreements lower tariffs, improve market access, and encourage international investment flows. Economic integration helps Vietnam strengthen its position within global manufacturing and trade systems. Labor market trends also remain important for economic forecasting. Rising wages can improve living standards and consumer spending, but they may also increase production costs for manufacturers. Balancing wage growth with productivity improvements will remain an important challenge for policymakers and businesses alike. International banks and financial institutions generally describe Vietnam as one of the most promising emerging economies in Asia. Strong demographics, export growth, industrial expansion, and increasing foreign investment continue supporting long-term optimism. However, economists also caution that global financial volatility and geopolitical tensions could create risks for all export-oriented economies. Another key issue affecting the Vietnamese Dong is energy import costs. Like many developing economies, Vietnam remains affected by global fuel price fluctuations. Higher energy costs can increase inflationary pressure and affect industrial production expenses. Expanding renewable energy capacity may help reduce some of these vulnerabilities over the long term. Technology startups and digital entrepreneurship are also growing rapidly across Vietnam. Young entrepreneurs are launching businesses in e-commerce, fintech, software development, artificial intelligence, and online services. The growth of the digital economy is creating new employment opportunities and helping modernize the broader economic system. Vietnam's educational improvements are helping support industrial modernization. More students are entering engineering, technology, and business programs, creating a stronger talent pipeline for future industries. International companies increasingly seek skilled labor for advanced manufacturing and technology operations, making education reform a critical long-term priority. Consumer confidence remains relatively positive as employment opportunities expand across manufacturing, tourism, and services. Rising incomes are increasing demand for transportation, electronics, housing, and lifestyle products. Strong domestic demand helps reduce over-reliance on exports alone and supports more balanced economic growth. International observers also note that Vietnam's political stability has contributed significantly to investor confidence. Stable governance and long-term economic planning help create predictable conditions for business investment and industrial development. Many investors prioritize policy consistency when evaluating emerging market opportunities. Meanwhile, global currency markets remain highly sensitive to interest rate decisions from major central banks, including the U.S. Federal Reserve. Changes in global interest rates can affect capital flows into emerging economies and influence exchange rate pressures. Vietnam's financial authorities continue monitoring these international developments carefully. Vietnam's manufacturing workforce has become one of its biggest economic advantages. Competitive labor costs, combined with improving skills training, have helped attract international companies across multiple industries. However, maintaining competitiveness over the long term will require continued investment in automation, technology, and workforce development. Export diversification has also strengthened Vietnam's resilience against external shocks. Instead of relying on a single product category, Vietnam exports a wide range of goods across electronics, textiles, agriculture, machinery, and consumer products. Diversification reduces vulnerability to sudden demand changes in any one sector. As we move deeper into 2026, market analysts continue watching whether Vietnam can maintain strong growth while navigating global economic uncertainty. So far, Vietnam has demonstrated significant resilience through changing international market conditions. Export performance, foreign investment, infrastructure expansion, and industrial growth all continue supporting positive long-term expectations. For currency watchers, the Vietnamese Dong remains one of the most closely followed currencies in Southeast Asia because it reflects broader trends in trade, manufacturing, and economic development across the region. While short-term fluctuations are always possible in global currency markets, Vietnam's long-term economic strength continues attracting strong international attention. Investors will continue monitoring inflation, trade balances, export performance, central bank policy, and foreign investment flows throughout the remainder of 2026. Any major developments in these areas could influence market expectations regarding the Vietnamese Dong and Vietnam's economic outlook. What remains clear is that Vietnam has transformed itself into one of Asia's most important emerging economies. The country's combination of manufacturing growth, trade expansion, young demographics, and increasing global integration continues positioning it for significant long-term opportunities. Although challenges remain, Vietnam's economic trajectory continues generating optimism among many international investors and analysts. So viewers, this was the latest Vietnamese Dong update and Vietnam economy analysis for 2026. The Vietnamese economy continues evolving rapidly as global trade, manufacturing, investment, and technology reshape the future of Southeast Asia. Investors, businesses, and currency watchers around the world will continue monitoring Vietnam closely because the country is becoming an increasingly important player in the global economic system. Thank you so much for watching today's report. If you enjoyed this latest Vietnamese Dong news and economic analysis, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss any future updates about the Vietnamese Dong, global currencies, international markets, and major financial developments around the world.